Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and this time we're going to look at some extended renders and production process for the Federal Railroad Administration's South Central High-Speed Rail Corridor. These renders will be the first video of two in that series, this one between San Antonio, Texas and Tulsa, Oklahoma. We'll start in downtown San Antonio. This is on the east side. San Antonio has two railroad stations that are similarly positioned. Neither is really in the downtown. They're both on either side of the freeway from it. I picked the east side for the video. The west side station is really kind of just as good. It's the same time in and out of San Antonio for both from the north. It looks like about the same cost. It looks about the same amount of damage. So take your pick on those two. I just happen to pick the east side one. One challenge with this particular routing here would be you have to go around this rail yard. And in the process, there's not a lot of room, so you're going to blow up a bunch of stuff. There is a disused rail line here that basically you can use for free. This was back in the day before I knew how to subtract from the Google Maps data information, so this is elevated a little bit more than it would actually need to be because I needed to get the additive stuff that I put into the scene over the trees. And then out on, I believe it was Union Pacific lines toward New Braunfels. Now this is another thing about older production process, or sometimes I take this shortcut when I'm just in a hurry. I put the high-speed rail lines on the existing conventional lines, and obviously you would have it next to those, separated by some distance. But that's a lot more work, for one thing, and two, I didn't know how to get rid of the stuff back when I made these. I had this particular section at 125 miles per hour going into New Braunfels. New Braunfels was an interesting challenge. This was basically the next 3D part in the area, and it's really ugly because of all these trees that are next to the river down there. You can even see them poking through part of the station. New Braunfels as an area is kind of interesting because where I put the station currently, there's like this holiday RV park, and it looked really terrible, but I didn't know how to get rid of it at the time. If I did this now, I probably would have removed that and put in some new buildings or something just to show what you could do with redevelopment in the area. An interesting feature of New Braunfels is there's a golf course right across the river from the station. You could either have the world's first high-speed rail line through a golf course, or you have an interesting opportunity there, I think, to redevelop that golf course into something a little bit more transit oriented, which is kind of an interesting idea. Coming into San Marcos from the south, this San Marcos is the home of, I'm probably going to get killed on this, I believe it's Texas State University.
It is.
Texas State University, pretty big university, has a student body of about 40,000 students. Combined with the location on this railway station and the little downtown that they have there, and the distance between San Antonio and Austin, which by high-speed rail works out to about 35 minutes each way, this seemed like a really interesting opportunity for transit-oriented development around a station here. Yeah, you can see in these renders there's kind of nothing there right now. And there's actually room around the station, immediately around the station, that could be developed now. In addition to that, the university is only 2,000 feet from this train station location, so other than these level crossings that are in the way, it's kind of hard to find, kind of difficult to find fault with this location. In terms of what made it into the video, a lot of this part right here got cut because I just, sometimes I render these very long sequences and then just don't have enough to talk about to leave them into the video. And then in terms of what actually does make it into the video, normally I'm focusing around the stations and also the transitions, be that from greenfield routing to railroad right-of-way or to interstate right-of-way. Usually that's what's in there. Also anything that helps drive the narrative of the video is going to get rendered if it has 3D Google Maps data. Now this particular area did not when I did these renders, but interestingly enough, Google added 3D Maps data to this area right after I made this video. Yeah, and this will give you a view of what happens with these weird transitions between the 2D and 3D data, where I still need to run the track here, but only part of it is useful, so I have to figure out how I can do that and then cut out the part that I can't use. And this is another instance of trying to fly over trees with the additive stuff. The flyover berm for this area wouldn't have to be anywhere near this high. This is next to Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Another case partially where I'm trying to get over the trees, but also I have the station elevated. So to some degree, it would also have to be this high for some distance. It might not need to be this elevated. Yeah, that looks like it's probably about 50 feet up. To get over adjacent roadways and things like that, you need about 15 feet of clearance. This particular station, as far as rendering it goes, is one of the ones that I've spent about the most time on because its positioning next to the airport was interesting to me. Like this sequence right here where the train comes by with all the weird reflecting glass, I thought was super cool. That didn't make it into the video. Just barely any of this stuff made it into the video. I was actually watching the video yesterday, and maybe I'm crazy, but it seemed like I didn't give any travel times between San Antonio and Austin here. And I'm pretty sure I messed up there. I'm pretty sure I wanted to give travel times here, and that's probably why most of this station sequence got cut when I didn't want it to. So, just weird little quirk of trying to make a video and meet a deadline and all that. Sometimes you just screw up and it doesn't work out the way you want. On the way out to the north side of this station that would have been at the airport, there's this wild curve that has to go over the river, and I really didn't want to render the whole thing, so I just left the train running off into the trees and then edited that so that you didn't see it. This part right here is coming into Temple, Texas. The idea I had here was this would be like a single tracked local loop. And the reason I made that decision was because I was having a really hard time figuring out how you were going to get through this area and grade separate it. Just because there are so many crossings, and some of the existing crossings are situated in a way that makes it kind of difficult to get the whole thing through there. But Temple is not an insignificantly sized area, and you do want to service the general area because of that and because of the nearby military base. So the idea was a local loop here just down the street from the old train station, which would not have been adequate for this purpose. And then the through tracks for that would have been next to this highway, which is this weird little loop road around Temple, because apparently Temple, which only has, 50,000 people or something in it, needs a ring road. Yeah, and this is another one where the ramps are higher because I was trying to get over the trees. This is a really long extended sequence that took a while to build with all of this viaducting over the freeway. And then the part that sucked about that was I only ended up using about 3 seconds of this. And this is transitioning from Interstate 35 out to Waco, to downtown Waco. And you've got a fair amount of distance there between Temple and Waco, and that's just because there are huge chunks of Texas that do not have any 3D building data. And that's true for most areas. It's just that as far as Texas goes, you actually have things in those places, so it's kind of weird that Google hasn't built that out yet. So up next is my obsession with the idea of having a downtown Waco station when it's probably a terrible idea. This is along the existing conventional rail tracks. Again, just for convenience, I actually put the high-speed rail tracks on the conventional tracks. There does appear to be enough room for 4 tracks through the entire area right there. And the idea here was, like, you're not going to be messing around with grade separation. So it's just going to run at 110 miles per hour through this area. Again, that's probably better left for some sort of local loop, and then have the through tracks go around. Texas TGV is a good example of that, where they plan to go around Waco, and they had the station on the east side of the area rather than messing with going into town. But like I said, I was obsessed with downtown Waco and getting a station there just because Waco has this huge unused downtown area that looks like it really could use a boost in terms of transit-oriented development. So, why not go for broke? Yeah, and then on the way out, I actually had that running on a street. So, just an example of I decided to do something that's probably not going to fly locally. Here, this is Alvarado. I think it's pronounced Alvarado in Texas. I always get crap from everyone locally because they don't pronounce things right when, in fact, they're the ones that are pronouncing it wrong. But, what can you do? This is an Alvarado transitioning again off of Interstate 35 and then to the local freight rail right away toward Burleson. And this, I picked Burleson for a stop just because it's on the edge of the Fort Worth Metro. And it seems like they have this nice downtown adjacent area that you could stick a station in and develop some transit-oriented stuff around. And that was a general theme throughout this particular videos where I was really trying to push like the sites for the transit for the development rather than just, trying to get as much speed as possible. Then coming out of Burleson to the north, headed for Fort Worth. And you can just barely see that on the horizon here. Coming into Fort Worth, interesting routing. This was on freight right away near these derelict grain elevators. Those are for sale, by the way, if anyone's looking to acquire that land. The last time I checked, anyway. So the thing about Fort Worth is that according to the plans for Dallas-Fort Worth high-speed transportation, the station's going to be underground. So I went ahead and rolled with that. Realistically, that's about the only choice you have anyway. There's really no way to get a new rail line into the city, given what exists already. And then this is coming out of Fort Worth to the north. Again, this is kind of like my older way of doing it before I knew how to subtract information from the Google Maps data. Big, long, ugly concrete tunnel bunker thing. Other rail lines covered up all over the place. Just ugly, but honestly, to get it looking pretty and doing it right would have taken forever anyway, so I just kind of said screw it, you guys can deal with it. This is further north of Fort Worth, and this is the reason that we're on this ramp here is we got to get over this transition between two freight rights away. And I just thought that was an interesting thing to show. Again, like for the video, I'm not going to show every inch of this line. That would take hours and hours. So I kind of had to pick my spots and figure out, areas that are interesting, areas that represent transitions, represent directional choices. I do not remember the name of this airport, but this was a place where I made a choice to run the line under the airport runways. And then I did this kind of sweeping like crane shot here because the Google Maps data was glitching out. You can kind of see it here. Where I think what happened was recently they added this data, and sometimes when that happens, the elevation data of the added area gets screwed up and it ends up being like 10 feet too low. And you can see that again here. on the left. And I don't remember what the specific point of this part was here, just showing that, hey, it's going to run next to the existing conventional rail. It's going to have to be elevated through this area. Part of that's just because there's 3D data here and I can show it. Oh, this is Gainesville. So Gainesville brings up the painful memory of having not mentioned Denton, Texas. A lot of people who watch this video in the area gave me crap for not mentioning Denton and instead sticking a station in Gainesville. Oh, the heresy of it. Denton, as far as this type of routing goes, is not greatly situated for a station. It's possible. There's like 100,000 students in Denton, like 15 universities or some stuff, 160,000 people. May have been an oversight on my part. Maybe I should have run the rail line through there, but you know what? I'm not building the thing. And here's what happens in the process where you go from like, hey, let's actually make something. Local people look at that and then they complain and then the route gets changed. All right, now we're in Norman, Oklahoma. And this is the home of Oklahoma State University. Great shot of Oklahoma State here, I thought, but I used almost none of this because I just didn't have enough to talk about. And yes, there is absolutely nothing 3D in Google Maps data between Gainesville, Texas and Norman, Oklahoma, unfortunately. I had two choices on the station here. I could have put the station near the university or near the downtown. University was a little bit more awkward, even though maybe it would be a better choice. Downtown wasn't too bad. They got a lot of room there. And, it's like a lot of these Texas towns. They have these quaint downtowns that, they're car oriented, but still nice grid pattern, lots of redevelopment and transit oriented development opportunities. So it's kind of interesting that people in Texas hate passenger rail and high-speed rail so badly, because their cities and towns are actually kind of laid out fairly nicely. If you wanted to, whoops. All right, and then this is heading out of Norman toward Oklahoma City. And even though it's only 18 miles away, you really can't see Oklahoma City from here, which is kind of weird. This is just south of the core of Oklahoma City, and I put in 4 tracks here, which I don't normally do, because the high-speed rail tracks would be next to conventional tracks, and I just wanted to show that there is indeed, for sure, enough room to fit all 4 tracks in there. In instances like this, my assumption was, okay, you're not going to need a ton of separation. You're going to run the train slower here, so the freight company isn't going to have a massive problem, just as long as you keep things separate and you don't screw up their operations. Real nice shot of the train going over a bridge over the interstate into downtown that I didn't use. Actually, a lot of this footage right here I just didn't use because I just didn't have that much to say about downtown Oklahoma City. And that's fine. It's a video about a train. It's not a travel tour. But it's interesting to me kind of looking at this later, seeing how I put all of this effort into cinematography and setting up shots, setting up framing, and then 2/3 of this I don't even put in the video. Yeah, so you'll notice some glitching every so often in some of these shots, and it's an interesting artifact of Google Maps once again, where since that data is streaming, sometimes it's just not ready on the next camera shot, and so you get like a garbled frame before it cleans up. This is the transition from freight right away to, I do not remember the interstate, but it's the main interstate that runs between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. The design of this was rather extreme. My idea was that you'd be able to rearrange the intersection a little bit to get everything situated. But once again, I didn't have the knowledge at that point to undo what was there already. So I just threw a big 60-foot high ramp over everything. This is our 200 mile per hour shot next to the interstate, and this interstate, which I cannot remember the name of, is probably one of the best suited interstates in the country to host this type of activity, because it doesn't have a lot of elevation change, and you don't have to deviate from it very much. This shot here was my original approach into Tulsa. There's not a good way of getting across the Arkansas River where everything is crossing the river now, so my idea was to continue north, cross with another freeway, and then come into the downtown area from the west along this abandoned rail right of way. Unfortunately, the abandoned rail right of way is not intact through the downtown area, so you would still need a tunnel. And I came to the realization that, you know, if I'm gonna go through all that trouble of tunneling, I may as well just tunnel from the original alignment. This shot here was an example of how, you know, if you could just talk freight rail companies into allowing electrification over their right of way for 4 or 5 miles in certain areas, you could really simplify this process quite a bit. In this case, the 4 or 5 miles would be over the Arkansas River and into downtown Tulsa, which really eliminates the need for a lot of expensive tunneling or whatever else you'd have to do otherwise to get a train into the downtown area. You know, and then in this case, you can see from the shot, it's going to wind up conveniently placed. Yeah, so it's a bit of a shame that the situation is as it is currently. This shot coming into Tulsa, I had a long viaduct that kind of needed to transition between the freeway and conventional rail. I don't exactly remember why it needed to be viaduct so long. I think it was because of the combination of crossing roads and other types of grade separations. Yeah, right here you've got a road going under and then a road going over the railroad tracks. And then this is a bonus render. This is one I did for the Red State video, where I had finally figured out how to subtract stuff from the Google Maps data, and I was able to visualize how a tunnel would get under the freeway and the river and into downtown Tulsa. So that'll wrap it up for this video. Plenty more videos to come on the main channel and here. Up next is Stu's News on Maine. I also have a couple other videos planned for Lucid's 2. One would be a quick review of the power station I bought and the solar panel that goes with it. And then also I want to do an unboxing and build video for the computer that everyone so graciously helped finance in December by watching videos and making super thanks contributions. So those are coming up as well. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.